openly threatening a response to U.S. President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This as the nationwide anti-regime protests continue and the death toll rises. All the details in the following report.
Iran's military commander-in-chief is now threatening Israel and the United States, saying the regime considers the escalation of hostile rhetoric against Iran a threat which will not be tolerated without a response. The statement follows expressions of support for the nationwide protests sweeping the country by both Israeli and American leadership, as well as threats by U.S. President Donald Trump to intervene in Iran if the regime kills the demonstrators. Meanwhile, the nationwide protests are continuing and expanding. Demonstrators clash with security forces inside Tehran's Grand Bazaar, where protests have entered their 11th day. The death toll continues to rise. So far, 36 have been killed, 2,000 have been arrested, a number which has doubled over the last 24 hours. Meanwhile, Iranian authorities say they executed a man accused of spying for Israel. Ali Ardestani was convicted of espionage for Israel's Mossad and executed after approval by the Islamic Republic's Supreme Court. The execution comes amid a wider crackdown, with the regime increasingly carrying out death sentences and detentions on espionage charges, a move rights groups say is being used to intimidate the people of Iran.
And so as the number of casualties in the protests continue to rise, all eyes are on U.S. President Donald Trump, waiting to see if he will follow through and intervene in Iran. And in a rare diplomatic breakthrough, Israel and Syria have reached a new understanding in Paris aimed at reducing tensions along their long-contested border in the Golan Heights and opening the door to future cooperation, including economic talks. The agreement, brokered under U.S. mediation, stops short of peace, but officials on both sides are calling it a practical step forward after months of stalled dialogue. ILTV correspondent Alec Pollard has more details.
This week in Paris, during a third round of discreet negotiations, senior Israeli and Syrian officials agreed to a joint communication mechanism to de-escalate conflict, share intelligence, and explore economic opportunities. Israeli leaders emphasized that security remains paramount, particularly in protecting citizens near the frontier and preventing surprise attacks, like which occurred on October 7, 2023. That could spark wider conflict. At the same time, Jerusalem made clear it wants the dialogue to expand beyond strictly military talks to include civilian cooperation in areas such as medicine, energy, agriculture, and other fields that could benefit people on both sides. A Syrian source said, "We are ready to provide the Israeli side with security guarantees that will be acceptable to everyone in exchange for its withdrawal from Syrian territory." The Syrians are aiming to revive elements of the 1974 disengagement agreement, which crumbled following Assad's ouster. One point of contention remains regarding the Druze minority in Sueda in southern Syria. Israeli negotiators demanded a humanitarian corridor to provide support for the Druze, who suffered massacres at the hands of Bedouin militias back in July. This demand echoes previous statements by Prime Minister Netanyahu. But Israel may have to accede to Syrian demands for Sueda to remain an internal matter, exposing the community there to future assaults. While Syria is insisting that this is not full diplomatic recognition, but only a shared military and communication mechanism, it does open the window for future cooperation between these two estranged countries.
Thank you, Alec, for the report. And meanwhile, this disturbing development in Syria, violence erupted, leaving at least 9 dead, mostly civilians, as government troops clash with Kurdish militia forces in Aleppo. The violence is the worst between these sides in months, coming amid delays in implementing a March agreement to integrate Kurdish military and administration into the Syrian government. Aleppo's 2 Kurdish-majority neighborhoods have seen the brunt of the fighting, and both sides have traded blame over who started the confrontation. The escalation raises concerns about the feasibility of Syria's integration deal with the Kurds, which is critical to President al-Shara efforts to confront militias that continue to exist in Kurdish-controlled area. The clashes underscore the fragility of post-Assad Syria and the ongoing threats that could impact security across the region. Israel has long maintained informal ties with Kurdish groups in Syria, dating back decades. These ties are largely strategic. Israel sees the Kurds as a regional counterbalance to hostile actors like Iran, Syria, and Hezbollah. And Israel's decision to recognize Somaliland as an independent state is drawing strong reaction from Somalia and attention across the region. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar visited the self-declared republic just days after Israel made its historic move. ILTV's India Naftali has the details. India.
That's right, Lidar. Israel is now the first and so far the only country in the world to formally recognize Somaliland as a sovereign state. Now, just 10 days after that recognition was announced, Foreign Minister Gideon Saar arrived in Hargeisa, the capital of Somaliland, in a visit that has sparked anger from Somalia. Somaliland, which declared independence from Somalia more than 30 years ago, has long sought international recognition. Until now, no country has formally granted it. Saar said he held talks with Somaliland's president, Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi, on what he called a full range of relations, including diplomatic, economic, and civil cooperation. The Israeli foreign minister said the two sides agreed to mutual recognition, the appointment of ambassadors, and the opening of embassies in the near future.
We agreed on the mutual appointment of ambassadors and the opening of embassies. We will get that done soon. We agreed to work together to promote relations between our countries for the sake of mutual prosperity. We want to build an enduring and warm friendship, not only between governments, also between the people of Somaliland and the people of Israel.
President Abdullahi confirmed that he has accepted an invitation from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to visit Israel. He said the developing relationship goes beyond symbolic recognition and is meant to create a long-term strategic partnership.
An evolving relationship between the Republic of Somaliland and the State of Israel. It reflects not only political recognition, but also a shared commitment to transform that recognition into a substantive, forward-looking, and strategic partnership.
Somalia, however, has strongly condemned Israel's decision and Saar's visit, calling the recognition an unlawful step and a serious violation of its sovereignty. Somalia maintains that Somaliland is a part of its territory and described the visit as an unacceptable interference in its internal affairs. But Israel has stressed that the decision to recognize Somaliland was not intended as a move against any other country.
And joining us now with more on the latest in the region is Iftach Bulman, geopolitics expert from the Middle East Learning Academy and Bar Ilan University. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the Islamic Republic of Iran, sort of the head of the octopus. There's a growing tension in the region that a second war with Iran may be imminent, especially after U.S. President Trump warned that the United States would intervene should the regime kill protesters, which we now know it is doing. Do you share that assessment? Are we headed for another confrontation with the Islamic Republic of Iran?
Well, if you mean Israel, well, naturally Israel wants to protect itself from any escalating threat coming from Iran. Therefore, it will engage against any evidence of force buildup by the Iranian regime, such as moving of nuclear-related materials or changing in and around the nuclear sites of Iran. And of course, we understand that Iran is reconstructing its ballistic missile array, which proved to be a very effective weapon against Israel. And so the IDF will be poised to launch an attack against that kind of an arsenal. However, there seems to be somewhat of a catch-22 here, as the demonstrations of Iran might lead the regime to see an Israeli attack as the lesser evil. Therefore, it can facilitate the narrative that the Iranians need to all unite in the face of an outside attack on the country, enabling the regime to crack down more forcibly against the demonstrators. Therefore, we might see Israel operating against the Islamic Republic's armament in a more covert manner, potentially using assets on the ground, much like we saw before October 7 in the beginning of Rising Lion operation. But as far as the U.S. and Trump's threat, I think that might lead for a combined operation which will, in a sense, kill two birds in one stone.
Mm-hmm. I know we've talked about the prospects of war. Let's talk for a moment about the prospects of peace. Moving on to Syria, you know, the Paris talks are being hailed as somewhat of a breakthrough. What exactly does this mean, and is normalization on the table as well?
Well, the Paris talks between Syria and Israel yielded one key element, at the very least, which was the beginning of coordination between the Syrian and Israeli security forces, a deconfliction mechanism of sorts. It's too early to call it a cooperation or a collaboration between the two governments. However, it does provide insight about the future milestones of this relationship, meaning security arrangements in southern Syria, in incorporation of other states, potentially, like Jordan is incorporated in the most recent understandings, and obviously the US. Some sort of a mechanism to be put in place in favor of the Druze and the Syrian Golan to be receiving aid and protection, and some sort of a joint oversight by both Syria and Israel's IDF over the disarmament of different factions in southern Syria. So it does give us hope for future normalization agreement, but I wouldn't prepare the red ribbon just yet for the future agreement.
Mm-hmm. And how does Somaliland tie into Israel's strategic outlook? I mean, the foreign minister is visiting the country today after Israel recognized Somaliland. What is the purpose of the visit, and how does it tie into Israel's, sort of strategic outlook?
Well, the sudden recognition of Somaliland tells us that finally Israel is adopting diplomacy as part of its geopolitical game. Not just using weapons or military deterrence for its geopolitical aspects. Now, it's been mentioned that Somaliland can be used as a jumping point for future attacks against the Houthis across the coast, especially if or when Israel engages against Iran. By the way, both for Israel's aerial vehicles and naval vehicles in a potential attack. However, Sarah's visit does demonstrate that Israel is formally backing this embrace of Somaliland and with political aspects, and potentially in cooperation with the Emirates, that has invested in the country extensively in the past. So this could be seen as a more regional move rather than just Israel connecting with Somaliland.
All right, so a lot of developments here in the region. Will, of course, continue to follow. Iftar Boum.
Thank you.
And moving on, a deadly and chaotic night in Jerusalem. A 14-year-old ultra-Orthodox boy was killed and several others injured after a bus ran into Haredi protesters during a violent anti-draft demonstration. A preliminary police investigation finds the bus driver was attacked by rioters who blocked the road before the fatal incident. ILTV's Deva Klein has the latest.
A 14-year-old ultra-Orthodox teen was killed and several others were injured when a bus drove into Haredi protesters during an anti-draft riot in Jerusalem. The incident took place at the busy intersection of Yirmiyahu and Shamgar streets, where hundreds of demonstrators had gathered. According to Magen David, underneath the bus and pronounced dead at the scene from Sivahil Yehoshua Street, where another pedestrian. Police say a preliminary investigation found the driver was attacked by rioters who were blocking the road and damaging vehicles before the incident occurred. He was arrested at the scene and taken in for questioning. According to Channel 12, the driver told investigators he was trying to escape after protesters surrounded his bus and had called police to report the attack. The investigation is ongoing. Authorities say that rioters set fires, burned dumpsters, blocked roads, threw objects and eggs at police, and attacked journalists, some of whom required medical treatment afterwards. Security forces moved in to disperse what they described as a violent disturbance. Police warn that violent rioting, blocking roads and attacking vehicles cross a red line and endanger lives. The incident comes amid escalating tensions over military conscription, with the draft debate continuing to deeply divide Israeli society. President Isaac Herzog called the incident a wake-up call for us all, saying the country experienced a sad and painful night. He warned that violence is crossing a red line and urged all sides to show responsibility, lower the flames, and prevent further disaster. Herzog said he trusts the police to carry out a swift and thorough investigation, offered condolences to the family of the boy, and wished a full recovery to all those who have been injured.
And for the first time in weeks, progress is being made towards advancing phase 2 of the ceasefire, as Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the Red Cross have once again begun their search for the last remaining hostage, Ran Gvili. In the meantime, Israel is pushing ahead with major changes to its defense posture as the IDF prepares for what Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir calls the possibility of a surprise war. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz reports on the latest developments in Israel's military and civilian readiness.
At the Leaders on the Home Front conference, IDF Chief Eyal Zamir said the military is rebuilding its strategy around the lessons of October 7th. He stressed that the IDF has already made changes to readiness to orders and addressed operational gaps. Zamir made clear that Israel's approach has shifted, declaring there will be no more containment, and vowed the country will not allow terror groups or Iranian proxies to entrench themselves along its borders. He highlighted that civilian resilience is now central to Israel's security, telling local leaders that their ability to function during emergencies directly affects IDF operations. He praised cooperation during recent conflicts, including last year's war with Iran, saying a strong home front gives the military the quiet it needs to operate. Meanwhile, Israel Aerospace Industries has tested a new integrated border defense system combining real-time intelligence from land, air, sea, and space into one operational picture using radar, drones, UAVs, and autonomous vehicles. IAI says it can respond quickly to threats in any conditions while reducing risk to soldiers. They call it a first-of-its-kind solution, merging lessons from past wars with advanced technology. But despite these advances, a new report by State Comptroller Netanyahu Engelman shows Israel's civilian front remains vulnerable. About one-third of the population, about 3.2 million people, lack access to adequate bomb shelters. The audit into the October 7th war finds years of warnings did not lead to real readiness, forcing civilians and local authorities to improvise. The worst failures were in rocket and missile protection. More than 11% of public shelters were unfit. Oversight was sporadic, and a national municipal protection program was frozen without alternatives provided. Schools were also unprepared, with nearly 40% unable to move students to shelters in time. Engelman calls for urgent, fully funded national programs to secure the home front, warning that without them, Israel's civilian resilience remains at risk. The report underscores the challenges facing Israel, strengthening the military while ensuring that citizens and communities are properly protected.
And the IDF carried out a raid at Birzeit University near Ramallah that was aimed at preventing a pro-terror gathering and disrupting activity linked to Hamas-aligned student groups on campus. According to the Army, intelligence indicated that a gathering in support of terrorism was expected to take place at the university. IDF troops and border police entered the area as the event began, using crowd dispersal measures and firing warning shots before successfully disbanding the crowd. The IDF says that later, a separate and more serious disturbance developed, involving hundreds of suspects. During that incident, stones and rocks were thrown at Israeli forces from rooftops, creating what the Army described as an immediate threat to life. Troops responded with additional riot control measures and live fire aimed at central violent instigators. The IDF stressed that the operation was conducted to prevent terror incitement and violence, and says it will continue to act against any attempts to use academic institutions as platforms for supporting terrorism. And moving on, hundreds of Jews from across Israel and North America closed out 2025 not with speeches, but with action, running, rolling, and walking together in the Negev. They took part in Adi's 4th annual Race for Inclusion, a powerful celebration of ability, healing, and hope.
Wow, what a fun day today here at Adi Negev Nahalat Eiran. We just completed 2.5 kilometers of the Race for Inclusion, a race that brings together people from all different abilities to celebrate Jewish unity and strength. More than 400 high school, gap year, and college students from North America gathered at Adi Negev Nahalat Eiran last week to take part in the 4th annual Race for Inclusion, a 2.5-kilometer fun run through the 40-acre rehabilitation village. Participants came through programs including Jewish National Fund USA's Alternative Winter Break and the Alexander Muss High School in Israel. They were joined by rehabilitating IDF soldiers, members of Adi's wheelchair basketball team, staff, volunteers, and residents crossing the finish line side by side. At the start of the race, Adi's Director of Advancement, Ellie Klein, reminded participants that this run carries a deeper meaning.
There are so many people of your age, college campuses across America, communities around the world who are running, do evil things, to promote hatred, promote division. But you decided to be here today at Adi Negev Nahalat Eiran to promote love and inclusion.
For Klein, the symbolism of running here is impossible to separate from the events of October 7th, 2023, when terrorists passed just outside the village on their way to Ofakim.
They want to advance hope, they want to advance healing, and they want to allow us to focus, to highlight on our humanity.
Adi Negev serves people of every background and ability, from residents with severe disabilities to war-wounded soldiers and civilians receiving treatment at the Kaylee Rehabilitation Medical Center, the first and only fully dedicated rehabilitation hospital in southern Israel.
We have so many different types of people who are coming here, all levels of ability. We have Jews, Israeli Arabs, Bedouins, Druze. The bottom line is that when they come here, they just focus on their humanity. All the stuff that we love to argue about, our politics, our religion, our background, we leave it at the door.
For the young participants, the experience was personal and eye-opening.
There were so many supportive, happy people there when you ran past the finish line.
I really believe in helping out this community of special needs and people with all different disabilities, so I want to be here and show my support for them.
As music played and a dance party broke out at the finish line, the message was clear: everyone belongs.
I think being able to do something that so many people with disabilities normally wouldn't be able to do, like running, is so incredible because, we're making it so that everyone can do it.
And for many, that joy said everything.
How was it? Wow, that was wonderful, so great! We're here to do breaks like this. Wow, we don't say walks in the road. That was so fun, so fun.
Tensions are rising between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United States and Israel. Iran's military